Test.
It was detailed up. I mean, the last time we were here, I don't think I had a birthday. So that's good. So better. My phone, your mic is on.
All right, we got a lot going on tonight. 3.0 is roll call of school board members. Everyone is here except for Hank Slavin, pre-approved absence, got a quorum. And Mr. Easton Anderson is here as well. So 4.0 is to approve the agenda. I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or discussion on the agenda topics? All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 5.0 is communication and reports, and we're going to start with 5.1, the audit report. Hello. Welcome.
Just hold it. You turn green.
I'm back. All right, good evening. I guess a couple things before I get started. One thing is I have a tendency to run through things pretty quick. So feel free to slow me down, ask questions as you have them. Otherwise, once I get done going through my little rant here, You can ask questions at that point in time. If you don't think of them tonight, I'm happy to come back to another meeting, so just let me know. Outside the audit report, we didn't have any difficulties performing the audit, no disagreements with management. We certainly appreciate all the help that we get and timely responses. It makes our job a lot easier, so appreciate that. One word of warning, we've had a few auditees now fall victim to some phishing scams via email, so just be careful. Had a few instances where somebody that is getting paid electronically, so maybe a contractor or a credit card company, even direct deposit for your staff members. Had a couple instances where a form has come in basically saying, hey, I'd like to change my routing number, my account number that has been not legitimate. So I guess my word of warning is probably just to make sure you follow that up with a phone call. That'll work for now. But I think we've had three or four auditees now that have lost money doing that, and you never get it back. So, or not all of it. So just kind of a word of warning if that happens. And it seems easy enough, but the form is being stolen and the emails look legit. So it's just scary. So into the audit report then, and we're going to have it up on the screen. I did throw some books out there too. So if you want to follow along, or if you've got, on your computers as well. I'm going to start on page 2, which I believe page 2 would be like PDF, maybe page 5. Does that sound right? So I'm about 3 pages off in the actual report versus the online report. We've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is considered a good or a clean opinion that they're fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It is management's responsibility for the numbers, the footnotes within the financial statements, and then our responsibility as auditors to come through and ensure that that is reasonably stated. And that's what our opinion is stating, is that we believe that they are. The next section of the audit report is pages 6 through 12, and this is known as management's discussion and analysis. This is designed basically to just give you a snapshot of what happened during the year. It's kind of high level, but it does provide some comparative information. So the rest of the audit report you'll see is basically 1 year financial statement. But if you're looking for kind of what happened, these would be the pages to look at. If you want to turn to page 11 as an example, page 11 shows like your general fund revenues this year compared to last year, as well as your expenses. So if nothing else, it might generate a question as to, why did something go up or down? It's kind of broken down a little bit differently than you're going to see in the rest of the financial statement. So just kind of, like I said, an idea, and it's probably the easiest read. The rest of it gets kind of complicated. So pages 13 and 14, I'm not going to go into much detail on this just because I think it's extremely complicated. This is the statement of net position, which is basically what we call a full accrual balance sheet, so to speak. So the bottom number on page 14 is what we call your net position, which would be retained earnings equity within the school district. A little bit over $19 million. This includes like your fixed assets and depreciation, net pension liability. I'm not sure if you went through that in the past, but it's just a lot of extra exercises to get to this number versus the balance sheet for the general fund, et cetera, where you would budget off of. So we'll get there in a second. I also should note, you might see some references to GASB 101 throughout. That's a new standard that had to be adopted, and Carla had some great times with that. In the past, we've set up basically if somebody's going to get terminated or leave employment and they get sick leave paid out or vacation leave paid out, we've set that up as a liability because that's a cost to the district. The new standard required us to look at and say, okay, what isn't going to get paid out that still could be used? So we went through a nice exercise with all your employees and put up a additional liability on this statement only, which is really just ends up being an accounting exercise, but wanted to throw that out there. So you'll see some references to that throughout. Page 15 is the statement of activities, which is the difference in a full accrual financial statement. So if you look about 5 lines from the bottom, you're going to see a positive change of $703,532. Once again, this is including things like your depreciation expense, changes in the net pension liability. So I don't take too much out of this statement. So the next couple that I go through, I'll go through in a little bit more detail. Page 16, this is your balance sheet for the governmental funds. So what we've done here is we've got you got three columns of numbers. The general fund and the debt service fund are the first two columns. Then you get to the non-major funds, which is a combination of your food service, community service, and building fund. Those are all broken out in the back of the financial statements. So if we're looking for some detail there, we'll get there in a second. If you look at the general fund, two lines to the bottom, the overall fund balance in the general fund is $4,418,342. The line that you see above that, that unassigned portion, $3,122,794. Those are the dollars that are basically available for spending that are not restricted. They're not tied into anything at this point in time. So you have not earmarked them for any special purpose. Those would be the dollars that you have to spend. One of the things that we do is we take that number divided by your general fund expenditures as a sign of fiscal health. You're at 10.65%. The prior year, you were at 14.64%. We just looked at the policy before we started this, and your policy says you want to be between 8 and 25% with a optimal of 15. So our rule of thumb is probably more closer to the 10%. You know, like to see districts stay above 10% for sure. The larger the district, I think the lower that number can be, just because you still have, you know, $5.9 million of investments, so you can withstand, you know, more cost, unusual costs that come up one time. But the idea is that you want to have enough money set aside to cover your operating expenses for a period of time, and that's what this percentage is trying to do. So, like I said, no red flags yet. It did go down from about 14.6% to 10.65%. We'll see how that compared basically to your budget here in a second too. If you go to page 18, then you're going to see the change within the current year. Three lines to the bottom. The general fund was down $425,145. Debt service fund was up $104,388. And then the combination of your non-major funds, which would be your food service, community service, and building fund, were up $251,740. So overall, you're down $69,000 as a district on the fund levels here. General fund, like I said, was down 425, and we'll take a look at your budget here in a second. The next several pages, pages 20 through 45, I don't plan to go into much detail here. Lots of activity for your significant accounting policies, capital asset activity. I will have you maybe turn to page 42. This is kind of a handy page if you're looking for like your long-term debt and maybe your upcoming schedules and what's coming due. Page 42 starts that table. And so when you flip the page to page 43, you can kind of see your GO bonds. You do have one coming due in 2028. So that one will be, you know, paid off, and then you'll have, you know, the rest of them look like they're in the 2036 range. But it does help for cash flow projections, et cetera, to know that those are going to get paid off over a period of time. And these are the pages that you find those on. Budgetary schedule is on page 46. So the column all the way on the right that you see there is going to be the difference between the final budget and the actual. And so starting at the top, you can see about a third of the way from the top, the revenues were about $339,000 more than budget. Expenses about halfway down the page were about $716,000 more than budget as well. A lot of that had to do with capital outlay type expenditures. So if there's some project expenditures or something that maybe you didn't budget for, that's where a lot of that increased cost came into play. The bottom number on the right that you see there, that's the difference basically from what you had anticipated on a final budget versus the actual. So you thought you'd come in at about $348,000 down, came in at 425, so a variance of about $76,000.
And what I was gonna throw, if you recall, we purchased the computers, and not that that's the only, but that is about the $75,000 difference from your budget.
Yep.
You know, and so, I mean, I'm gonna say hats off to Carla.
Yeah.
You know, good, I mean, it's
Close.
close from what we're budgeted for, not to say everything comes out
Right.
exact, but.
Yeah, basically a $30 million budget.
Yeah.
76,000.
It's pretty close.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Going through a couple of the non-major funds, so pages 52 and 53. This starts breaking out like your food service fund, community service fund, and then the building fund, which basically got closed out this year. So if you're looking for activity there, those are on those pages. Page 54 is another page we spend quite a bit of time on during the audit to make sure State of Minnesota is very particular with their codes and making sure that you're putting the money in the right codes and spending the money in the right codes so you don't lose anything going forward. And so we go through this. The column that you see third from the right, that UFAR's balance is what gets sent to the state. And this is the balance that we're kind of focusing on. So just one thing that we do look at is if there's anything in deficit. Just wanted to make sure that there's a plan of attack there. So Safe Schools, for example, does have a deficit of about $92,000, and that's fine. A lot of schools will spend money, like one-time money, and then over the course of time earn that back. LTFM is kind of like that too. The only real concern I guess I have on this page is in your school readiness fund and the community service, that there probably is going to be some kind of activity required to clean that up at some point in time. So right now that $592,000 deficit is being covered through somewhere else. Because school readiness, is operating at a deficit yearly and there's a big balance to begin with. So, usually the recommendation is to kind of eat away at that over the course of time. You don't have to clean it all up in one spot, but, you might want to look at budgeting some general fund money to start whittling away at that deficit, especially since it keeps on growing. Might be a different story if you started making some money there, but most of these school readiness programs don't make money. So, and unfortunately, they won't allow you to just move money from ECFE or community ed to cover that because they have, positive money. So just something to keep in mind that I think, might want to consider doing some transfers because that number is getting pretty large. Then the last part of the audit report here is basically just our compliance section. Page 55 is the Minnesota legal compliance letter where we test things like pledged collateral, conflicts of interest, if you had any bid work. This is a clean report, so we didn't have any findings or comments during that testing. Same goes for pages 56 and 57. This is the government auditing standards report, which is basically a high-level overview of your internal control structure at the district. We believe you have proper separation duties, able to put the financial statements together, so we don't have any findings there for you either. And then lastly, pages 58 through 60 is the single audit. So when you spend over $750,000 of federal dollars, you're required to have the special single audit or uniform guidance audit. We tested your child nutrition cluster and we have a clean report or a clean opinion there. So no issues when we did that testing. And just to kind of give you an idea, page 61 breaks out the different federal dollars that you have. And so you can see you're about $1,091,000. The threshold is changing for this next year to $1 million from 750. So you're going to kind of be in that range of maybe not having this going forward. So saves a little bit of money on the audit to do this extra testing and then, a few pages as well. So, yeah, that's about 70 pages and 10 minutes, so feel free to throw some questions or we can circle back to anything if you wish.
Completely comprehended.
Yeah.
No, it's a lot.
I don't have any questions. Does the board have any questions? No, I think it looks pretty good.
Okay, we
Yeah.
appreciate that. If there's any questions later on, Carla knows how to get a hold of me and I'd be happy to answer them.
I hear you're very busy, so thank you.
Yep, two more tonight. At least I don't have to travel anywhere.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian.
All right. 5.2 is enrollment update.
And again, and Nancy's not here. Carl and I worked a little bit on it today. Our number, something's pulling wrong. We're down about 9 kids. If you look at the number, it's different than that. And we can't figure out what's going on from one month to the next right now. Elementary stayed pretty stable. The middle school ends up being actually down 5. The high school in net is down 4, and that's where the 9 comes up. I mean, and we're gonna work on, if you look from month to month, the total's jumping over. Something's being pulled and something's not being pulled. But we have, and I'm just picking on the high school here. I mean, there were 2 that were new, 2 went online, 2 went to juvie, and 1 completely dropped off the map that the county's working on, and then we got 3 new in. So it's, I mean, we know where, I mean, we don't want them to be going to other places, but so that's where we're at. Like I say, we'll work on why the number's going back and forth, what's pulling and what's not pulling, to figure out what's going on.
Okay, any questions on enrollment? Good. 5.3 is administration and department head reports. Start with you.
I just have a few things. The Solar for School grant is in and completed and actually got word back today. Within a couple days, we should know that everything's good to go. Which if not, we have to just keep submitting stuff, until it is. On the 18th of December, the three parties, meaning the city, the school and, Ziegler, will sit down for a roundtable to make sure everyone's on, the city understands what Ziegler's has proposed, on behalf of the school, and should be good to go. At that point, obviously nothing, then they start the planning, and the development of it, and then we'll get a timeline of what it looks like next summer. And that's part of that meeting. Now that the audit is complete, we will start working on the revised budget. Carla, does the majority of the lift on that, so, but that'll be coming in the near future, and then obviously looking into next year, we're right around the corner for that. I just wanted to ask to make sure January 12th is our next meeting, which is the plan to do the reorganization first and then regular meeting after, or some districts choose to do a separate meeting. Last year we didn't. I didn't look. I'm just asking to make sure.
I've never been a part of where
Okay.
they've been separate,
Okay.
so.
And
do it
then
all at once.
the only other thing I was gonna throw out is just a couple reminders. There's a health and safety meeting, on the 18th of December, and again, that's the one that happens at 1:30. If someone can make it, if not, the group will make it. We have a district leadership meeting on the 16th, a couple days before that, that's 3:30. And then, I'm gonna say Lynn and Josh, because Amanda just said she couldn't make it on Wednesday. To keep in mind, we're at 3, but I'd like to just chat after for a couple minutes if we could, to make sure we're on the right.
Yep.
Other than that, I think I'm okay right now. There was a ballot here, and again, this is just another one of the groups. Region 1 is where we get our tech service and that stuff through. Again, they give you the 4 people running for 3 positions. If you're so inclined to want to vote, I will mail them back to them in their folder here. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It's, don't know what else to say on that. I don't know any of the people, so it's nothing, That's all I have as of right now.
Okay. We'll head on over to the principals with Sierra.
Turned it off. Hello. Okay, so just an update, Turkey Bingo was a huge success. Thank you to everybody that gave hours of time, set up, preparing raffle baskets, Jody and Lacey, who helped with that pre-sale to prep, cleanup, and everything in between. We brought in actually over $8,000, so that's super exciting
Wow.
for our PTO. So huge success. We had our December spot assembly. This month we focused on anxiety. We actually asked Corporal Gunderson to come in, so he kind of spoke to the kids as well on how our choices at school can impact others and how that can help or hinder. And so just making safe choices at all times, and being aware of how that affects all. So it was good for him to be able to get up there, for the kids to see him in a different manner as well. Second grade had an artist from the Campbell Library that came last Friday to do an art project with the kids. It was kind of part of their 25th anniversary celebration. So thank you to Andrea from Campbell Library and the second grade team for doing that. And lastly, shout out to 5 of our kids who had a Care and Share Sunday school project through Holy Trinity Lutheran Church. They donated a few totes this morning that included clothing, hats, gloves, blankets. And so that was super thoughtful of them, and they were very proud of that. So we were thankful for the materials this time of year. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
No, Melissa. So,
No, she's.
okay, Matt.
All right, a few things going on at the middle school. Brief talking about Avid. Last week, there was a group of us that went to a training that was housed at UND that was really for North Dakota, northern Minnesota area to help develop our site team and make it better us to kind of trickle out to full staff. I say that was a very good training. The next day on Thursday of last week, Joe Miska, who is our implementation strategist, then did a site visit at the middle school, met with Mr. Enright, who's the Avid elective teacher, met with Houston Wallace, who's our site coordinator. And then we actually came and met with the high school, senior high a little bit to see how we should start talking about or having conversations of moving Avid into the high school. And so those are just very preliminary conversations around some of that Avid. Some college and career things that are going on is that we did have some high schoolers that visited CMS last week and visited our Avid classes. And not that they went through Avid themselves, but were able to say like, hey, middle schoolers, some of these skills that you're learning in this class, I wish I would have had when I was in middle school. Or that's what we're talking about right now in our high school level classes, trying to get ready for college. And so that was thank you to the high schoolers that came to visit and share some of those words of wisdom with our middle schoolers. A couple upcoming things is there is a 6th grade band and choir concert tomorrow because we will have school, and otherwise it'll be very hard to reschedule that concert. We'll figure it out. But 6th grade band and choir concert tomorrow. The musical auditions for James and the Giant Peach Jr. just wrapped up last week, and that performance will be March 5th and 6th. So they'll start rehearsals very soon and get going on that. Last Friday, Mr. Swenson had UND robotics students visit his 7th grade science class. I got to watch part of that, and so it was bringing in, talking about NASA, talking about what they do, as well as giving them some activities where some of them had to be managers of the others and explain Lego blueprints to the builders who weren't allowed to see the blueprints. So it was kind of fun to watch the 7th graders get into that. A district announcement, not just a middle school one, is that there are a lot of needs listed on Proposity, mostly for winter clothing. About a month ago, we sent out some social media posts, and that day, everything that was on the list had been purchased for people in need, but there's another list again, so if there's anybody listening and going on to that website or app of Proposity to help support local needs, again, winter clothing at this time of year in northern Minnesota is needed. Last thing I want to touch on is that we are working on trying to figure out the READ Act and the secondary level. I'm still working on that, making some progress on what interventions could look like at the secondary level for our students, and getting curriculum and resources to help our 6th through 12th graders on how to first identify whether we have any characteristics of dyslexia, and if we are maybe behind grade level on reading, how do we get you caught up? So that's what's going on at the middle school. Are there any questions?
Questions for Matt?
All right, thank you.
I'll let Easton talk a little bit about the fun stuff going on at the high school, so I'll defer to you, Easton. Go ahead.
My segment is pretty short today. We have a band concert tonight at 7. Our choir concert is at 7 next Monday. Winter sports are in full effect. Parents, make sure you pay your activity fee for your students. Auditions for the one act plays are Tuesday and Wednesday this week at 3:30 in the choir room. And we only have 3 weeks left of the second quarter.
And then I'm apologizing for the electricity bill. So if you're going to the band concert tonight, you'll know why the electricity bill for the high school is really high, because she's got thousands of lights and different blow up things and all sorts of stuff. So that's on her. So bill her. I also want to talk a little bit about what Matt touched on with as far as READ Act stuff. We did CAPTI testing. We tested 119 kids. Well, I tested a lot more than that, but some by their CAPTI scores have tested out. The 250 was the cutoff. Don't ask me why they picked 250, but that's the number. So we have about 120 or 130 kids that were below 250 in one or more of those categories or one of those tests that we gave. Of those 120-ish, 36 are special ed, so they will be doing interventions with them in their special ed resource room, which leaves us with about 85 kids that are low in one or more categories, and it's phonemic awareness, phonemic intervention, multisyllabic interventions, morphology intervention, and a fluency intervention. So those are the 5 different places that they are. 73 of our kids are in the morphology, or I'm sorry, in the multisyllabic intervention. 12 are in fluency, which in my opinion is the least of my worries. Obviously, it means they can't read very fast, but if they're comprehending and reading slowly, I'd rather have that. The only problem could be is if they're to the college level where they're reading a 35, 40-page document and trying to understand all of that, that would take a lot longer than if somebody who's a little more fluent. So we'll work on all of those categories with somebody somehow. When Matt figures it out, I'm just going to go ride on his coattails and figure out what that looks like. But we have some ideas, but of course that involves some training with the READ Act too. So we do have some people that could be possibly helping out. I know that Mr. Grassel has talked about maybe possibly adding some time to come in on Mondays and Fridays to help out, but a lot of those things are still in the work. So I'll be honest, and I think I've told you, I didn't test my seniors just because we don't necessarily have to have everybody trained and everybody tested. So I didn't test my seniors because they're on their way out. Not that we don't care about them, but we've got to focus on the 9th through 11th graders probably a little more. So yeah, so that's where we're at with that. But so we have everybody figured out, but well, we just got to figure out how we're going to take care of them and how we're going to, because they got to be in groups of 5. We can't throw 30 of them in a class and get a true intervention. It's supposed to be in groups of 4 to 6. So that's the hard part. So it'll take time and money, but we'll figure it out. So like I said, Matt will figure it out and I'll help. No, I'm just kidding. So we'll figure it out. So I'm not too worried.
When does that have to be in place?
Well, they want it to be working on it next semester. I mean, and I think with full implementation for probably 26, 27, with where we have a true plan to start with. So this is kind of flying the plane while it's in the air sort of thing right now. So figure it out.
Always good to do, fly the plane while it's in the air.
Building the plan,
Exactly.
repairing.
Mhm. So if you want to talk to any principal in the area, they're all just as confused as we are. I'm sure that we have a in-person meeting Wednesday with all of our Northern Division principals, and that'll be a hot topic of figuring out what somebody has got to figure out. So anyway, there you go. That's all I got.
That's for Brian. Yeah. That was almost perfect. Laura, I gotta stop you because we have to do truth and taxation in 30 seconds.
Hold that thought.
We have to do it promptly at 6. Okay. Okay, so I need to recess the regular meeting, so I'm gonna move to recess the regular meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, any questions or discussion on recess? All those in favor of recessing the meeting, the regular meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 7.0, we're gonna open truth and taxation. I'll move to approve that.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion on opening truth and taxation hearing? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Carla,
Right, hello.
hello.
We're gonna touch the first few pages first, just because it's the tax law and we have to talk about that. So Minnesota's truth and taxation law requires that cities, counties, and school districts follow certain steps before adopting a tax levy for the following year. One important part of that law requires a mailed notice to each property owner in the county, which describes the tax levies proposed by the city, county, and school district, and what percent increase of the levy would mean in dollars. And the second part of the law pertains to the public meeting for the taxing jurisdiction. And tonight we're going to look at that meeting process. So statute 275.065 discusses the proposed property tax, provide and discuss information to the current budget, and the public must be given reasonable amount of time to comment on those property taxes. So just 3 points to remember. Revenue formulas are set by the state, except for what we send to the vote. So, and then levies are state mix of, which is set by the state again, and increase in local taxes doesn't always mean increase in our revenues for the district. How our taxes are determined is the county assessor determines what our values are, the legislature sets tax capacity, and then the county auditor will calculate the tax capacity for us. And then finally, the county auditor divides that total by the total tax capacity of the district to determine the tax rate needed, and then that tax rate is multiplied by each property's tax capacity. So we're gonna jump into looking at what our budget looks like, and we've kind of really talked about what each general fund has been at, so we're gonna jump and look right at the actual numbers of our budget overview by the fund. So right now, as a district with all 4 funds, the general fund, food service, community service, debt service, and construction fund, our revenues are $33,292,177, with the bulk of that being in our general fund. And then same goes with our expenses, which will be $33,568,044, with the bulk of it being in our general fund, carrying the expenses. So if we flip over, it's just a little graphic on where our revenue comes from, and you can see that 88% comes from state money, with local taxes being right at 8%. And then where do our expenditures land in that? 80% roughly is our salaries and benefits. So that is a huge portion of our budget. And then breaking that budget down, on the last page, or next page, is 6.8% is the district and school administration, 2.64 is direct service support services, and then regular instruction is 49.52. And then special education comes in next at 15.82. So that's the bulk of our breakout. And then the components of the projected fund balances, what we hope to land at next at the end of the year. Kind of like what Brian talked about in our audit, we started the year at 4,418,343, and we will go backwards about 300,000, give or take a few, at 4,116 at 64, where our unassigned balance will be taking the hit. And then we're right into our levy. Again, with the APU is a max of 244 APU dollars per APU, or set by the state formula. Some of the factors that impact our tax change is issues driven by legislative and issues determined by district voters. Local factors, just to point out, it's inflammatory pressures on the real estate market, and the abatements and the property improvements not previously taxed hit ours the most. And then egg to school credit has been consistent at 70% since 2023. I have not heard any rumors that's changed. So, excuse me, your 2026 school tax levy or taxes will be spent, 55% will be in the general at 2,455,634, 2% in the community ed at 97,692, and debt service rounds out at 43% at 1.9, 227,916. The levy limitation and certification this past year, because we're looking at 25 pay 27, we get 23, we came in at $4,366,090. Last year was, excuse me. I think my slide is off.
Did you say pay 2027?
Yeah,
So it should just be actual 2025, pay 2026, and then proposed 2026,
yep,
pay 27. Okay.
but I think the wrong numbers. I want to verify. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. It is $4,481,243 with an increase at 3% over last year. Going on to the next page, components of that, excuse me. Proposed levy versus last year is just a breakdown of which funds that falls into. The main one hitting our operating referendum. And then lastly is our request for the board to approve a $4,481,242 levy with $2,455,634 for general fund, $97,692 in the community service, and debt service at $1,927,916. And then just kind of a quick reference to how our property taxes are broken down. And then we have to jump back a year because we used the 2024 property tax values. Businesses residential are at $2,602,819, and then agriculture is $1,818,423. So the tax levy is going to fall mostly in that residential area. So that is what I have.
Any comments or questions?
Thank you, Carla.
So I'm gonna move to close the truth and taxation hearing and reconvene the regular meeting, and I'll take a second.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussions on what we just talked about? Okay, all those in favor of reconvening the regular meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Laura. Appreciate your
Good
patience.
We have been having fun with community ed. Couple of fun classes in November at South Point. We had Olivia Zitzo taught both of them. The first one was a painting class. The kids painted on canvas. It was a tree perspective class. So she had them pretend that they were laying down and looking up at a tree in the fall, and what would you see? And so that was fun. That was a full class. And then she also taught a fruit kebabs and protein bites cooking class. That was also at South Point. That one was also full class, filled up, and lots of fun. Kids had a good time trying those, measuring and making all of those things. So that was great. And then last week at New Heights, we had Chelsea Lee and Courtney Shell teach slime and Play-Doh class. So that was fun. Also filled up fast and had lots of people wishing to do that class too. So coming up on Thursday this week, we have a retirement class for adults on preparing for retirement. So lots of fun things happening. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Easton, did you have anything else? Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to 9.0, which is the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second,
Oh, second.
any questions or discussion on the consent agenda? Good. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Great. 10.0 is for opportunities for citizens to speak. I don't see any. Okay. Moving on to 11.0 district business. 11.1 is to approve the board developed superintendent goals for fiscal year 26 as presented and attached in board book.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the superintendent goals, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 12.0 is payment of claims and accounts.
I'll make the motion to approve the payment of K-12 bills 130661 through 130761 and the electronic fund transfers in the amount of $1,441,894.73.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of paying the claims and accounts, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're on to board member comments. 13.0, Josh, we'll start with you.
Just thank you for all the work that everyone's been doing. You know, it's kind of getting, changing the seasons. Hopefully we can get some, donations for kiddos that need that. Those kind of things. I know that I was there and there's a lot of kids over at New Heights right now that aren't having hats or gloves or, you know, boots, stuff like that. They're going outside and those kids don't have it. So hopefully we can get some people in the community to help us out with that.
Lindsay?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, Amanda?
I just had a question, but I'm slow tonight. When are we gonna do the evaluation so that we can have it at least set, so we can stay on top of the superintendent evaluation for the next coming
I
year?
think last year we did it in June.
Do it in June and then have our new goals by August?
That would be ideal.
Okay.
Yep. That would be.
And
ideal.
everyone be safe on the road, stay iffy. Nothing today.
Okay. I don't have anything either. I'm really excited for this band concert with all these lights. Better not just be hype.
It's
And
cool.
And I and I agree, check Proposity. I know we haven't talked about that app in a long time. It's still there. You might have to re-sign up and there's things on there that you can gather for people in need, or donations. I know the schools take that too, so. All right, next, this is our only meeting in December, so the next meeting will be on January 12th. That is our organizational meeting and regular meeting, 5:30.
And I don't want to go that further up, but code 3 for Christmas, the police way giveaway is Saturday coming up. All those bags of stuffed animals are from that teddy bear toss.
The teddy bear toss, yep.
So,
Code 3 for the police station.
Boy giveaway, it's here in this room and it's Saturday. I was just gonna go look at time.
Okay.
In the morning, like 8 to 12 or 8 to 11, something like that.
Okay,
Are they
Well-
still accepting donations or no? No?
Well, I think they can, it just goes elsewhere,
It goes elsewhere? Okay.
because they have already wrapped and are getting
Yeah.
ready.
Cause I know the middle school did a drive for it, did you guys?
Yep. They collected money,
Yeah,
the
like the-
$3 or $5 or
Yep.
something, I don't remember.
okay. Code 3 for Christmas, put on by the police station in this room on Saturday. Bring an ID, time to be determined, somewhere in the morning,
That, but
It is 8 to 11 AM.
8 to 11 AM.
Thank
Perfect.
you, Brian, here.
All right, so I will take a motion to adjourn the regular meeting.
so moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Great. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.